You can love someone deeply and still lose yourself in the process. And the moment you lose yourself, the pain becomes unbearable. Most people think emotional detachment is cold, selfish, or heartless. But the truth is, it's the only way to reclaim your peace when someone has taken too much space inside your mind. You know that feeling. When your mood swings with their messages, when your day depends on their attention, when your sense of self slowly shrinks around them. It's not love, it's dependence, and it drains the strongest people alive. Stoic philosophy teaches that suffering doesn't come from the person. It comes from the meaning we attach to them. And today, you're going to learn how to break that attachment without breaking yourself. This video will guide you through a clear, grounded, emotionally steady path to take your power back. Calmly, privately, and with dignity. If you're ready to breathe again, this is where your detachment begins. 1. Clarify what you're really attached to. Most people believe they're attached to a person, but what Stoic philosophy reveals is far more uncomfortable. You're not attached to them. You're attached to the story you built around them. That story is powerful. It's emotional, symbolic, sometimes even sacred. It's the version of them you held on to during your best nights and your worst days. It's the version you replayed in your mind when you needed comfort, validation, excitement, or a sense of belonging. But stories can become cages, especially when the person no longer matches the character you wrote for them. Emotional attachment is rarely pure connection. It's an emotional contract built on 3 invisible anchors: expectation, illusion, and habit. And unless you separate these 3, you'll keep feeling tethered to someone who may no longer deserve the space they occupy in your heart. Let's start with expectation. This is the future you pictured with them. The conversations you didn't have yet, the milestones you imagined, the one-day scenario you mentally rehearsed. Expectations are addictive because they promise certainty in a world that constantly shifts. But when the relationship changes or breaks, it's not just the person you lose. It's the imagined future collapsing on top of you. The Stoics warn us about this exact trap. Suffering begins when we cling to what we wish reality would be instead of accepting what it is. Expectations are emotional contracts the other person never signed, yet you feel abandoned when they don't fulfill them. To detach, you must first acknowledge that the future you mourn was built by your mind, not by their actions. Then comes illusion. Illusion is the edited version of them, the version you see when you overlook red flags, excuse behavior, romanticize incompatibility, or turn loneliness into love. Illusions grow when you focus on their potential instead of their patterns. When you fall for who someone could be instead of who they consistently are, you willingly step into emotional quicksand. And the more you sink, the harder it feels to step out. Stoicism teaches that clarity is the highest form of strength. You cannot detach from someone you refuse to see clearly. The moment you stop protecting the illusion, you stop feeding your attachment. The third anchor is habit. Emotional habits are often stronger than emotional bonds. You might not miss them. You miss the routine, the morning texts, the late-night conversations, the comfort of familiarity, the rhythm your nervous system adapted to. Losing someone disrupts those rhythms, and the discomfort feels like heartbreak. But much of that pain is simply your body recalibrating. Stoics would remind you, you are not your impulses. You are what you choose to reinforce. Habits lose power when you replace them with new, intentional routines that serve your peace rather than your longing. To detach emotionally, you must separate the person from the story. You must see where your heart is clinging to expectation, where your mind is attached to illusion, and where your body is addicted to habit. And that clarity begins with one of the most difficult but liberating exercises you will ever do. Writing down the 3 hard truths you've been avoiding. Sit down with a blank page, and answer these 3 questions honestly. What did I expect from them that they never actually offered? What qualities did I project onto them that they did not consistently show? What routines or rituals am I missing more than the actual person? These answers are uncomfortable. But discomfort is the birthplace of detachment. When you see the full picture without emotional fog, you weaken the hooks that kept you tied to someone who may not have been aligned with your growth, your peace, or your values. Now, apply the Stoic framework. Reality versus interpretation. Reality is what happened. Interpretation is the meaning you attach to what happened. Reality is neutral. Interpretation is emotional. When you confuse the two, you suffer. When you separate them, you breathe. Reality says, they pulled away. Interpretation says, I'm not enough. Reality says, they changed. Interpretation says, I must fix this. Reality says, this connection no longer supports my well-being. Interpretation says, I can't survive without them. The power lies in realizing that interpretations can be rewritten. Reality is what it is. Neutral, simple, clear. Interpretation is where your freedom is reclaimed. Emotional detachment does not require force, coldness, or denial. It requires seeing the truth without the lens of desire. It requires accepting that sometimes the story you loved was never fully real. And that's okay. You're not losing your heart. You're retrieving it from a place it no longer belongs. The moment you stop attaching meaning that isn't there, something profound happens. The person stops holding emotional power over you. And for the first time, you can begin to detach, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. 2. Reclaim your inner space. There comes a moment in every painful attachment when you realize something uncomfortable. The person you're trying to detach from isn't just in your past. They're still living inside your mind. They take up your mornings. They interrupt your nights. They sit in the back of your thoughts while you're trying to work, drive, or simply breathe. It's not just emotional attachment. It's mental occupation. And until you reclaim that inner space, no amount of distance, silence, or logic will feel like enough. Stoic philosophy begins with a simple but radical idea. Control what occupies your mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your mind becomes dyed with the color of your dominant thoughts. So if someone constantly occupies your attention, your emotions will follow. Your nervous system, your habits, your energy, even your sense of self. The real battle is not with the person. It's with the space they've taken inside you. You can't detach emotionally while they remain mentally omnipresent. Most people underestimate how powerful mental occupation is. You might not talk to them anymore, but you keep revisiting conversations, replaying arguments, dissecting moments, stalking reminders, checking their posts, or imagining scenarios where everything finally makes sense. Even silence becomes a thread that still connects you. The mind becomes a room crowded with their shadow, and you can't enter your own life without bumping into it. This is why Stoicism teaches a form of discipline most people avoid, guarding your attention as if your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Attention shapes memory. Memory shapes emotion. Emotion shapes identity. When your attention stays tied to someone, the chain extends through every layer of your inner world. To reclaim your inner space, you must practice what I call mental unfollow. It's not blocking them online. It's blocking them in your mind. It's unfollowing the versions of them your mind keeps obsessively refreshing. Mental unfollow is intentional, not reactive. It's the conscious decision to stop feeding the mental loops that keep you emotionally tied. Here's the truth most people don't want to admit. You detach faster from someone you stop thinking about, not someone you stop talking to. Mental unfollow begins with awareness. Every time your mind drifts to them, whether through curiosity, longing, regret, fantasy, or anger, pause and name the thought. This is a mental visit. By labeling it, you interrupt the automatic emotional reaction. Stoicism emphasizes this point deeply. What harms you is not the thought itself, but the unconscious surrender to it. Naming the thought creates a gap. In that gap, you regain agency. Once you identify the mental visits, the next step is to limit the time your mind is allowed to wander into their space. You don't need to force yourself to stop thinking about them. That's impossible. What you can do is control the duration. Think in minutes, not hours. The rule is simple. If a thought of them arrives, acknowledge it, and then guide your attention back to something present, grounded, and real. The nervous system doesn't calm itself through willpower. It calms through redirection. Every time you guide your mind away, you strengthen the internal muscle of detachment. Eventually, the mind learns to return home on its own. The next pillar of reclaiming your inner space is reducing mental triggers. These are the cues that pull you back into the emotional orbit of the person. A song, a location, a notification habit, a scroll reflex, a playlist, a photo, a saved message, or even an evening routine that used to include them. You don't detach in the absence of these triggers. You detach when you build a new identity that no longer depends on them. This leads to the most powerful exercise, the 48-hour replacement ritual. For the next 48 hours, choose 3 triggers or habits that constantly remind you of them. It could be checking their social media, revisiting old photos, rereading messages, listening to certain songs, or imagining conversations. Then, pair each trigger with a replacement that nourishes your inner world. Example, instead of checking their social media, read 2 pages of a Stoic text. Instead of replaying conversations, write a journal entry about what you learned. Instead of listening to shared songs, switch to a playlist that aligns with who you're becoming. This is not distraction, it's reconditioning. This is not avoidance, it's reclaiming your cognitive territory. People often underestimate how quickly the brain rewires when habits shift. When you consistently replace the emotional trigger with a nourishing behavior, you are teaching your nervous system a new pathway, one that leads back to self, not to attachment. Here's the Stoic truth. Your inner space is sacred. Not everyone deserves a seat inside it. The more you protect that space, the more clarity you gain. The more clarity you gain, the faster emotional fog dissolves. And when the fog clears, you realize something liberating. Detachment isn't about forgetting them. It's about remembering yourself. Reclaiming your inner space isn't about pushing someone out. It's about taking yourself back in. It's not erasing them. It's recentering you. And when you reclaim the space, you reclaim the power you didn't even realize you had given away. 3. Remove emotional reactivity. There is a moment in every painful attachment when the hurt doesn't actually come from what the other person did, but from how your mind reacts to it. Stoic philosophy captures this with one of its most powerful truths. You suffer because you react. Not because of the message they didn't send. Not because of the silence they gave you. Not because of the memory that resurfaces out of nowhere. But because of the emotional interpretation your mind attaches to those triggers. Emotional reactivity is the invisible chain that keeps you tied to someone long after the relationship has changed or ended. And until you break that chain, detachment will feel impossible. Emotional reactivity shows up in familiar ways. Your heart races when their name pops up. Your mood crashes when they don't reply. Your brain spirals when you see them active on social media, or you get thrown back into emotional chaos by one unexpected memory. These reactions feel automatic, overwhelming, uncontrollable, like your body responds faster than your rational mind. And in a way, it does. Your nervous system is wired to respond before you consciously think. But Stoicism exists to help you interrupt that reaction, insert a moment of choice, and reclaim your emotional power. The Stoics built an elegant system to break emotional reactivity, a 3-step discipline that turns impulsive pain into grounded clarity. Pause, label, reframe. This is more than a coping strategy. It is a way of reshaping your emotional identity. Step 1. Pause and take one powerful breath. Most emotional damage happens in the first 3 seconds of reactivity. The mind receives a trigger, your body interprets it as danger, and your emotions explode before you've had time to step back. Pausing is the simplest but most transformative Stoic tool. When something hits you, whether it's a text, a silence, a memory, or a post, do nothing for a moment. Don't respond. Don't overthink. Don't assign meaning. Just pause. The pause interrupts the autopilot. It gives your brain the distance it needs to choose a healthier response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you're troubled by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke that." Pausing is the moment where that revocation begins. In that breath, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Step 2. Label. Name the emotion before it names you. When a trigger hits, your emotional brain wants to panic, overreact, or catastrophize. But when you label what you're feeling, you move the emotion from the survival brain to the thinking brain. Instead of drowning in the feeling, you step above it. Tell yourself clearly, this is anxiety. This is longing. This is disappointment. This is fear of losing. This is my nervous system remembering, not my heart speaking. Labeling does not erase emotion, but it changes your relationship to it. You're no longer the emotion. You are the observer of it. This is one of the deepest Stoic transformations, the shift from reacting to witnessing. When you witness an emotion, it loses its ability to control your behavior. Step 3. Reframe. Rewrite the meaning your mind is adding. Every emotional reaction is powered by a story, not by the trigger itself, but by the meaning you attach to it. A text they didn't answer becomes, they don't care. Seeing their post becomes, they're happier without me. A memory becomes, I'll never find this again. None of these interpretations are facts. They are emotional narratives your mind creates to fill gaps in uncertainty. Reframing means intentionally rewriting the story. Ask yourself Stoic questions. What else could this mean? What is the most neutral explanation? Is this fact or interpretation? What do their patterns show, not my fear? What response aligns with my dignity, not my desperation? The reframe brings you back to reality, not the illusion spun by emotion. Once you reframe, the emotional charge begins to dissolve. You begin to detach, not because you force yourself to stop caring, but because you stop feeding the emotional stories that kept you stuck. Real-life examples of breaking reactivity. A text message triggers you. Pause. Don't respond immediately. Label. This is fear of being ignored. Reframe. Their timing does not define my worth. A memory hits you hard. Pause. Breathe before spiraling. Label. This is nostalgia, not truth. Reframe. If it was meant for me, it would still be here. A social media post upsets you. Pause. Stop scrolling. Label. This is comparison and longing. Reframe. People post highlights, not reality. These micro moments are where detachment is won or lost. The Stoic exercise. Trigger, response map. For the next few days, write down every trigger that hits your emotions. Be honest, specific, and non-judgmental. Next to each trigger, write a Stoic replacement response. Example. Trigger, seeing their name online. Stoic response. Observation, not interpretation. Trigger, no reply for hours. Stoic response, silence is information. Trigger, a heartbreaking memory. Stoic response, memory is not a mandate to go back. This exercise rewires your emotional reflexes. Bit by bit, reaction becomes reflection. Reflection becomes clarity. Clarity becomes detachment. Here is the truth. You don't detach by suppressing emotion. You detach by mastering your reaction to emotion. When you stop reacting, you stop bleeding energy. When you stop bleeding energy, the attachment loses power. And when the attachment loses power, your peace has room to return. The person doesn't change. The situation doesn't magically resolve. But you change. And that changes everything. 4. Rebuild identity without them. There is a harsh but liberating paradox at the core of emotional detachment. You don't hurt because you lost them. You hurt because you lost the version of yourself that existed when they were in your life. That version felt wanted, chosen, needed, connected. That version had a role, a rhythm, a sense of direction tied to another person. When the connection breaks, it's not just the relationship that collapses. It's the identity built around it, and that's why the pain feels so deep. You're grieving the loss of a self you thought you would continue being. Stoic philosophy insists on something radically different. Your identity must be anchored in self-mastery, not in another human being. Your worth cannot depend on whether someone stays, chooses you, validates you, or understands you. A Stoic identity is built on 3 pillars: self-mastery, self-trust, and discipline. Not feelings, not validation, not attachment. When your identity becomes internal rather than relational, detachment becomes not just possible, but natural. Self-mastery means you shape your habits, emotions, and actions, not the person you're trying to detach from. It means you stop letting their presence or absence dictate how you feel about yourself. Self-trust means believing that you can survive without the version of life you imagined with them. It means believing in your strength more than in your fear. And discipline means showing up for yourself, even on the days you feel empty, lonely, or unsure. But rebuilding identity isn't theoretical. It's practical. You rebuild who you are by choosing who you are becoming. To begin, create what I call the identity reset list. Write down 5 things that define you that have nothing to do with them. Not shared memories, not shared routines, not shared dreams, only what is undeniably, independently yours. Ask yourself, what qualities do I carry even when no one is watching? What skills, passions, or strengths belong only to me? What parts of my character remain even after heartbreak? Your list might include resilience, creativity, ambition, compassion, discipline, humor, or the ability to rebuild after loss. These are the parts of you that remain untouched by the relationship. These are the seeds of your next identity. Once you have your list, the next step is the ritual of reinforcement. Dedicate 1 hour every single day to something that nurtures the identity you want to grow. 1 hour where the focus is not them, not the past, not the story you lost, but the future you are building. This hour could be spent training your body, learning a skill, building a career project, journaling, reading, practicing a craft, meditating, or developing your mind. It doesn't matter what the action is. What matters is that it expands you, because identity is built through repetition, not inspiration. Every day you invest that hour, you become someone less defined by loss and more defined by growth. You shift from someone who was shaped by relationship to someone who is shaping themselves. And slowly, you realize that detachment isn't about closing a door. It's about returning to the person you were before the attachment blurred your sense of identity. When you rebuild who you are, you no longer feel the urge to cling to who you were with them. And in that moment, Detachment becomes not a struggle, but a natural evolution. 5. Create distance and new boundaries. Emotional detachment is impossible without one essential ingredient: distance. Not just physical distance, but emotional and digital distance too. Most people try to detach while keeping all the doors open. The conversations, the social media access, the memories, the routines, the subtle threads of contact. But you cannot heal in the same environment that hurt you. You cannot regain clarity while still standing in the emotional echo of someone who no longer plays the same role in your life. There are 3 levels of distance you must build: physical, emotional, and digital. Physical distance is the simplest. Seeing them less, avoiding shared spaces for a period of time, and giving your nervous system room to stabilize. Emotional distance is deeper. It's stepping back from their drama, their problems, their moods, their needs, and recognizing that their life is no longer your responsibility. Digital distance is the most underestimated. Every post, every message, every notification, every online presence of theirs keeps the wound open. Distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Stoicism frames this perfectly. Detachment is an act of self-respect. It is not punishment toward them. It is protection for you. A Stoic does not cling to what disrupts their inner peace. They release, step back, and choose serenity over emotional chaos. Creating distance is you telling life, my peace matters more than my impulses. My boundaries matter more than my longing. My future matters more than my nostalgia. But distance must be supported with boundaries, clear, intentional, unapologetic boundaries. These are not walls. They are filters that protect your energy from slipping back into old patterns. Here are boundary scripts to help you reclaim control. The refusal boundary: I'm not available for this conversation right now. The emotional boundary: I can't take on this role anymore. The clarity boundary: I'm choosing space for my well-being. The redirection boundary: I'm focusing on myself at the moment. The closure boundary: this isn't healthy for me to continue. These boundaries are not for negotiation. They are declarations of dignity. When you speak them calmly, without anger or explanation, you shift the dynamic from dependency to sovereignty. To strengthen this shift, begin the 7-day distance reset. For the next week, identify the 5 points of contact that make you weakest: checking their social media, responding instantly, reminiscing through old texts, visiting familiar places, or staying available emotionally. For each point, create a limit or a rule. Reduce, pause, or eliminate the behaviors that reopen the wound. Every day you follow these limits, your nervous system detaches a little more. You regain space, you regain clarity, and eventually, you regain yourself. That is the purpose of distance. Not to push them away, but to bring you back home. You've just walked through the 5 Stoic steps to emotionally detach, clarifying what you're truly attached to, reclaiming your inner space, removing emotional reactivity, rebuilding your identity, and creating new boundaries with dignity. Remember, detachment isn't coldness. It's returning to yourself after losing too much of who you are in someone else. It's the quiet act of choosing peace over emotional chaos, clarity over fantasy, and self-respect over longing. Now it's your turn to practice. Choose just one of these steps today, only one, and commit to applying it consistently for the next 7 days. Whether it's limiting mental triggers, setting a boundary, or redefining your identity, small disciplined actions will shift your emotional landscape faster than you expect. Thank you for spending your time and energy on this journey of inner growth. Your peace is not only valuable, it's sacred, and you deserve to protect it. I'll see you in the next video, where we continue building inner strength, emotional mastery, and self-respect through the lens of Stoic philosophy.